I'm wanted by the Russian Federation for fighting in Ukraine, labeled a war criminal. This is part 5 of a story. The other parts are listed on my Instagram. This is basically the crash out, right? I wake up the next morning and all of a sudden I see an RU mill blogs like Rybar that I had committed a horrible war crime. There was the voice notes, photos, everything. And the guy who did it was like, too late now. But nobody in the Legion was like tracking it at this time. It was just going through Rybar at that point. And I was on my way to leave the Kharkiv Dolphinarium to resign at the Alamo, in which I had sent a bunch of just unhinged texts to Jan while I was drunk that I'm resigning and all the problems. And Jan, being the fucking cool dude that he is just like, bro, we need to talk. Where is this coming from? Because I was just crashing out. I had just cooked off mentally. I get to the Alamo. At first I refuse to speak to him. I just want to sign it. And then he just like looks at me in the eyes. Like, he has this vibe of like an Austin youth pastor. He's just like, bro, just tell me what's going on. And I just started narrating my story, and I just started sobbing and crying hard. And he just embraced me into his shoulder. And I said, I'm sorry for everything I've said. I've burnt out, and I'm scared of the idea of being with people like Craig Lang in the Legion. And I blabbered on, and I apologized profusely. And that was one of the more embarrassing moments of my adult life, to be honest. And Jan handled that with such a degree of compassion that is so not typical of a Ukrainian guy. But I resigned on my own terms, and I left. I was done with the Legion. I was picked up by my platoon commander, Janusz, who later died. I gave him some of my stuff. I had left that solar generator. I got on a train. I met Swampy in Kyiv, gave my kit, gave my helmet, gave everything, and then took a train to Poland, where I was then contacted by a dodgy journalist named Corey Pop, who went off of Netflix credentials saying that he had worked for Netflix and he had heard about the Benjamin Velcro story, as it was being called, and he wanted to hear my interview. And so I gave him hours. I gave him hours of audio notes while I was drinking and just out of my mind, leaving the country. And they were not the best audio notes ever, but not the worst either. But he did not tell me that he was going to ultimately, through Lindsay Snell, give it to the Gray Zone, in which they sold it to the Gray Zone. I had made my situation worse, and now it was becoming knowledge that within the forces that I had made up fake war crimes. At this point in time, people pretty much cut off contact with me. I headed to Poland, and I had to go get my dog in Serbia. I went to Serbia, I got my dog, I came back to Poland. I figured, all right,